Welcome back to the This Week in Fantasy series. Last week we took a little bit of a breaky like Vince Chase out on Fantasy Island, and the Entourage references are going to be coming in hot and heavy like Michael Scott in this episode because I got the king of funny with me coming off of a huge dub. Benny boy, it's your first appearance on TWIF. Your team's looking solid. You're right there in the division race at 2-2. How are you feeling?
Feeling a lot better than I was the last 2 weeks before this past one. Cause two great weeks of losing to a Packers team on prime time had me feeling pretty rough. So this past win was a big one. It was a much needed one to stay in the division race. So feeling good.
Yeah, you badly needed that win. So let's go ahead and jump right into that game and talk about it because I think that was one of the most riveting performances and impactful, really. Because not only did you win, you won big. You absolutely fucking monster moded Mark. So what jumped out at you about this game? You were obviously following it the whole time. Tyreek Hill had a blow up week. Like, what do you think about this?
Uh, Honestly, I'm just surprised that I had enough because I thought that he had a much stronger team for this week, but Melvin Gordon somehow squeaked out 6. Mixon squeaked out like almost 13. But yeah, Tyreek was obviously the big heavy hitter this week for me, which was great because he had 2 studs performances the past 2 weeks before that. So
Exact.
real, this was definitely a good boom week.
Alrighty.
But Hollywood Brown too had a good week, which I'm sure Mark is wishing he had right about now.
Yeah, Mark's starting out brutally at 0-4. Alright, here we got Spencer against AB. Spencer took this one down, and across the board, his team looked good. DJ Moore getting an incredible amount of targets, and AB falling down to 2-2 and tying you. That really stood out to me, the fact that you and AB are both 2-2. Aaron
Yep.
Aaron is 1-3, and he barely lost to the Gouch, who, even though Murray continues to do really well for him, had some big holes in his team. And then we had Lily and Kevin, where Kevin won very one-sidedly.
His first victory.
First victory, that's right. And then we had the matchup of the week, where Jackson squeaked out a devastatingly, like just absolutely soul-crushing loss for Weston. With Russell Wilson going to be out for a few weeks especially, that was just a brutal one to lose. And as far as Jackson goes, that was a must-win game. He really needed that one. Even when Hurts is ineffective, he's one of these guys who can put up the raw box score numbers despite looking sort of clownish in the game a lot of the time. And Metcalf had a 10-plus week. Knox found the end zone. Patterson was electric with 3 touchdowns. This was just a huge week for Jackson, and Robbie Gould got 0, and he almost cost him the game.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, it would have been very
But
rough if Jackson lost because of the kicker.
wow. But he still managed to score 123.
Excellent. And then here, Cam, who usually beats me, was on the receiving end of a very solid performance. A droopy 120. Buffalo, who I was very high on at the beginning of the year and drafted, shut out and embarrassed Houston. And Harrison Butker is on an offense so efficient, I might actually be better off with a different kicker that stalls out in the red zone more. And even though there were some holes in my team, like Sanders looking like his offense is just watered down more than Prego, Nick Sirianni doesn't have a fucking clue what he's doing. Absolute disgrace there in Philly. But Terry McLaurin gets such a huge amount of targets and a lion's share of any sort of big scoring opportunities for Washington. He's proving to be a big threat. Like, what do you think about my team overall since it's leading your division, Ben?
I mean, it's pretty scary. Uh, Other than the Odell flex spot that was being played there, but other than that, I mean, And I'm not even saying Odell's that bad. It's just the stigma that follows him. But I mean, Saquon's finally starting to look like the old Saquon, which like I knew he would eventually. Cause like that first game that I played you, he hardly had any touches or any like productivity. So
Yeah,
I knew that he would get warmed up and do what he's doing now. That's a good look for you. Stafford's panned out pretty well. Sanders, eh. But I love the Allen Scary Terry mix with Goddard too. So there's some holes I think that like obviously your bench can patch up from time to time. Like Tyler Boyd's a good option, obviously a good option. Uh, Having the backup with Ertz, Williams isn't a bad option. So I mean, like you have like good choices to choose on some week to week basis on your position. But I mean, it's a pretty scary team because your big guns are pretty productive and consistent.
that's very true. The most noteworthy thing about this game was David Montgomery was having a career day in spite of Dalvin Cook getting hurt and it looking like, well, Cameron lost his best weapon. What is he going to do at running back? Montgomery decided to drop 22, and he actually had a pretty nasty knee injury about halfway through the game. So he could have dropped
Yeah,
fucking 35. It would have been ridiculous.
pretty unfortunate for Cam. So.
Yeah, I don't think it would have affected the outcome, but it's nice to see me beat Cam when I usually lose to him.
True.
Okay, so we can start the preview off. And unfortunately for me, Stafford's already locked in for a very average 16. Tyler Lockett failed to break 6. And for really my extreme detriment, I was just so saddened to see Henderson punch it in once with the touchdown. They got to the
Hmm.
8, they gave it to Henderson. Henderson got to get to the 3rd, and then they just gave it to him again. Then they got all the way to the 1 with a pass to Cooper Kupp, which I didn't mind so much because he had Cooper Kupp as well, and then they just gave it to the backup that I have, Sony Michel. So pretty shitty Thursday night outcome for me. Do you think that I'll be able to overcome? Because as usual, I'm projected to lose. I've been projected to lose every fucking game this year. So I just want to know what you think about this. Will I lose this one?
Uh, I don't really see it. I still think that you win. It might be closer than you like, but I still think that you have a better week than. I mean, just looking at most of the matchups, I feel like you win most of them.
Whenever you consider this matchup, you have to really look at the Bills' defense taking on Kansas City because he has Kelsey as his first round pick, and I really considered dropping someone and picking up a different defense because Kansas City's offense is so good. But Buffalo's looked incredible this year, and I'm going to roll with Buffalo. How well do you think Kelsey is going to do? Do you think he'll get over under 10? And then how well do you think Buffalo is going to do? So Kelsey over under
I
10.
I would say Kelsey probably gets over 10 because he didn't get a touchdown I think this last week or the past 2 weeks. So uh, yeah, the last 2 weeks he hasn't. So I would bet that he would against a Buffalo Bills defense, and I think it'll be a high scoring game. I don't think the Bills defense is gonna. They might have a turnover here or there. I don't think they're gonna have a great from a points perspective, a great game against KC.
Who do you think's going to win that one? Bills or Kansas City?
I think Kansas City will, but it probably will be uh, closer than what some people think.
Okay. Very interesting stuff there. As far as Aaron Rodgers goes, do you think he will be ranked in the top 10 of fantasy points when the year concludes?
Uh, what is he at right now?
At
'Cause
rank 17. But he had that
ugh.
atrocious week in week 1, remember, which kind of queers it a bit.
I know. That was great. Um, yeah, I would say it'll probably be top 10, probably like 8, 9, 10. But I can see him being up there just based off of how much they do like to pass sometimes with Aaron Rodgers.
Do you
Even though it is annoying, they give it to Aaron Jones on the goal line.
Do you feel sort of a weird connection to Aaron Rodgers since you famously picked him in that first round that one year, and he's sort of synonymous with you in a way? Do you know what I mean?
I,
Like,
I, I always do kind of keep an eye on him, but uh, I don't really feel a connection towards him.
well, some players and fantasy owners sort of inextricably linked, like Brandon Jacobs and you and Cam. Like, I'll never think of Brandon Jacobs and not think of you ripping Cameron off for him back in like 2008.
Earth, Wind, Fire, three-headed trio, running backs the Giants.
All
Jacobs being one of.
So in this game, I think the keys here are for Scary Terry and Allen to get over 10 and Goddard to find the end zone once, because I think Barkley will have a good day and Sanders will have one of his better days, maybe like 9. But I think the receivers are really going to have to pull their share in this game. And obviously, like, I'm expecting Buffalo to get, maybe like 5. I don't expect Buffalo to have another pop-off week. So are you going to pick against me here, Ben?
Uh, no, I still think Saquon and your wide receivers make up for the lackluster performance by Stafford.
Okay.
Not lackluster, but as far as fantasy goes, not very as good as it could have been for you. So I still think that you eat this one out.
I think lackluster is a fine word to use on that
I mean,
offense.
365 yards and a win, like that's not bad. The pass and the touchdown, you would think you would have more pass touchdowns than that kind of yardage. Either way, I mean, like it was atrocious. Like Aaron Rodgers week 1, like performance. Like he was actually really good. So
Man, I really wish we had a few more of those Aaron Rodgers type performances from him. One pointers, fucking disasters where he's just getting completely embarrassed off the field. But what are your thoughts on Mark this year? This was a guy that, especially when you talk to Aaron specifically, you would think that he's like the second coming, like the actual fantasy genius. Put Fabiano over on the side on the fucking bar ditch in the road. Mark was the guy if you were to listen to Aaron. And I feel like on the previous episodes, you've definitely rated him as very good too. He's sitting here at 0-4. Do you think this is sort of Mark defrauded? Do you think that his previous performances can be written off as a result of a weak division? Or just what are your thoughts on Mark's reputation as it stands at 0-4?
well, it definitely is not helping his reputation. That's for sure. Do I think that he's still a strong manager? Yeah. Do I think that he had 2 really tough weeks, tougher than I had, with his 2 losses that he had recently? Yeah. He had really good performances by his own team. It was just one of those like Big 12 shootout type of scores. So I do feel bad, and I still think that he's a good owner. I don't think he's like some second coming of the fantasy genius, but he's definitely an above average owner, or at least average. So, but honestly, I think those kind of losses and just the aesthetic of being the only 0-4 team isn't good for the reputation. So I will recognize that.
Solid response. I think I want to flash over to Austin's game now because this has a lot of implications regarding what we just spoke about, in the sense that I'm leading the division and am sort of looking like a wounded animal going into the Sunday slate. I'm down big, projected to lose. I mean, down big, it's relative because if only 2 fucking guys play, it's more based on like which positions were they and what you expect for them as opposed to the raw number. Like when Jackson was down 21-0 and only Graham Gano went against Lilly like 2 weeks ago, that constituted being down big because it was just the kicker, you feel me? Whereas like if you started 3 Chiefs and they combined for 20 and the other guy started a kicker and he put up 15, you wouldn't be down big because the other guy fired a lot of his load, right? So I feel like I'm at a pretty damn big disadvantage going into Sunday. Scary Terry's going to need one of those multi-touchdown games. Keenan Allen's going to have to find the end zone. There's a disgusting amount of targets going towards Williams. I think that has just really hurt Keenan Allen's value this year as the prevalence of Williams in that offense. And if the guy's not stealing his touchdowns, he's dropping the ball to kill drives. It's freaking brutal. But AB really needs a win because obviously if he wins, he's tied for first. Same goes for you, but we're saving your game for last because of obvious God tier implications. So talking about AB's game, he's playing the Gouch here, who is another guy who really wants to get in the power position at the top spot of his division. He's 3-1. He wants to continue to assert his dominance, looking very sharp. And Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray, two guys that put up a lot of fantasy points because of their legs. How do you think the Giants are going to play against Dallas, and will Daniel Jones get over or under 20?
I can see him getting. I mean, that's kind of hard for me to say because I think that the Dallas defense has gotten better. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, though, at the same time. So I can see Daniel Jones getting 20, if not more than that. But I can also see him having a terrible game with 3 picks and 2 fumbles.
Okay.
I would definitely pick Kyler out of this matchup between quarterbacks.
Okay. And if you had to pick the Cowboys or Giants, who are you taking?
I would say the boys, honestly. I think it'll be a close game, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either side.
I think the Giants are a bottom 3 team, and this is a must-win game for the Cowboys against a hated rival. You can't give away the easy games just because you're overachieving a little bit. If the Cowboys take care of these games versus the Giants, the Eagles, and Washington, with the established division lead they already have, it's going to be hard to lose it. They can just take care of in-division business. So it's a sort of a trap game, a lot of people would call it, because it's yeah, you're playing the Giants, it's a free win, but right when the Cowboys are going good, they love to fuck it up. So I'm going to be really excited to watch that one in the afternoon.
That's true.
What are your thoughts on Derrick Henry so far? He's playing laughable Jacksonville, probably the worst team in the league. Do you expect him to have a big carry game, and are you surprised by his rank 1 status?
No, I think he's going to have a big game tomorrow, honestly. And it doesn't surprise me that he's ranked number 1. I mean, looking at those the lowest one he had was that week 1, the 7.7, and then it's just been insane. I mean, against the 31 ranked Seahawks defense and a Jets 32, so I mean, those could be outliers of opponents that he's faced, but I don't think Jacksonville is going to be that much better.
Agreed.
But it is crazy to think that he's back at number 1.
Look at these Mike Williams numbers that freaking Keenan Allen should be getting. This is just gross. I wonder if that's going to change or continue as a trend. What do you think?
Based off of how Herbert has thrown, at least to start this season, I think it's more than just a trend. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty consistent so far. So,
Fair enough.
He's ranked 5. And it's not just the actual receptions either, it's the targets. 12, 10, 9, 4.
True.
Except for that last one. That's not taking a lot away. I mean, the other ones are taking a lot away from, what's his name? Your guy, Keenan Allen.
Brutal. So looking at these receiver matchups, obviously Adams looks bright and shiny at the top of the roster there for A. Bizzle, but if you just sort of eye-fuck the rest of the roster, it's looking pretty light. George Kittle, banged up, already out, placed on IR. He's going to miss the next 3 games. Absolutely brutal. Looks like that decision will be made for him, and he'll get to start Andrews. And this idea to flip Kittle despite you has really blown up in AB's face. What are your thoughts on this with AB having to guzzle Kittle here?
I think it's hilarious that y'all vetoed that trade just to help me out. Y'all were just looking out for me, so I'm very appreciative of Austin being stuck with Kittle, and he's not been very good either way.
Yeah, Kittle really hasn't had a very good season compared to what he usually does.
Huh? Like I said, he's an offensive like blocking tight end more than an actual like Kelsey type wide receiver tight end. So I'm not surprised by the decline.
AB started the receiver at the bottom that we see down here, Cephas of the freaking Detroit Lions, and that blew up in his face a couple weeks ago when he got .8. Last week he managed 8, and this week AB is going to bench him. And it's funny to me that AB is definitely more active on the waiver wire than he was before and trying to pick up some of these guys and improve. But to me, a lot of these guys are pretty clearly just having flash in the pan games or get more targets because of an injury or don't really have any staying power. They're sort of like the trendy, like, if you need a guy this week, pick up this guy. They're not really going to have any staying power. So when I look at AB's team, it has a lot of holes in it. Singletary, you really shouldn't be starting before a lot of the bye weeks hit. He's really not that good. And even when the Bills decimate teams and get super far ahead, he doesn't put up the God numbers. And when we look at the rest of AB's team, a huge hole at running back 2, huge hole at wide receiver 2, and he lost that tight end depth since it's sort of having to just be filled in. So are you worried about AB here? Do you think AB is in a bad position?
I mean, this is something we already knew about the minute he did that draft because he wasted one of his. I think it was like his second draft
Fourth
on
pick.
a running back that was already hurt. Yeah, but I mean, still, it was one of those his like major like roster spots. So he's like had to do his for that QB or that running back Q position all year. So Singletary is not a bad option considering what he was starting off with at the beginning of the season, but it's still not great, obviously. But that hurts him. Tim Patrick has not been with the Broncos with Judy out,
Well,
but
Bridgewater's hurt now.
yeah, and Drew Lock is. I don't know. Don't have as much faith, I guess. I thought Drew Lock would have been better for the passing offense for the Broncos, but after watching Teddy operate the offense, I honestly think it's going to hurt that offense of production, especially in fantasy, way more.
Yeah, at least
Now having Drew Lock in there.
at least you know what you're getting with Bridgewater. I hate it when franchises get him and try to sell to the fans that they're like really trying to win a Super Bowl. If a team gets him and they're like, yeah, there was no one we liked in the draft this year, so we're going to do a season of Bridgewater, that's fine. But if a team is like, we're going to compete this year with Bridgewater, that is like so ridiculous to me. I think his ceiling
Well,
is
I mean,
very.
they're 3-1,
Yeah,
so it's
but
not like they were doing bad with them.
look
But
at
they did play the Giants and the Jets.
exactly
So,
look at the teams that they beat. And
yeah,
what was the other team that they played? Like the Falcons or someone awful? The other team was really awful too.
yeah, they haven't had a strong,
But it's
strong
like yeah,
schedule yet.
they were 3-0 and it was cute. And Bridgewater looked like Bridgewater, like average to a little above average, and he's not going to make retarded mistakes. But when like you hear these talking heads say like, oh, 3-0 teams have historically made the playoffs 81% of the time. Are the Broncos Super Bowl bound? And it's like they're not even winning record bound. Can we like hit the brakes on this shit for a second? To me,
No,
Teddy Bridgewater's just very figured out, and like you know what you're gonna get with him.
you haven't watched much of the games then, because he's looked really, really good. So,
He's looked like Teddy Bridgewater, like accurate
uh,
mid-range passes. Again,
yeah,
playing against
but
no
they didn't
defense.
stop it.
Of course they didn't stop it. It's the fucking Jets and Giants. Couldn't stop anything. That's what I'm saying.
You're acting like the Jets have a terrible defense.
The Jets are a
They have
joke.
a terrible offense.
They're bad across the board.
That's not true.
What do you think about Sam Darnold and his transformation since he got out of New York and away from Adam Gase?
I think it's actually probably the most interesting storyline right now in football. It's just like how bad the Jets made him look. Because like I'm not saying the Panthers are. I mean, made him look amazing or anything. But I mean, he has looked significantly less sucky with the Panthers in 4 or 5 games than he looked over 3 seasons with the Jets, and it's kind of insane.
I
Like
agree.
just the level of how different he looks.
And every freaking game he wins is just a huge FU to Adam Gase and the entire Jets organization. Every time he looks good and coordinated and like he has his shit together, it just is egg on the face of the JETS jokes, jokes, jokes. This was a team that developed him for years. He was the answer, perma-slurped in New York. And then they just let him go because apparently he suddenly wasn't the answer. And he gets to Carolina and he's looked good. He's looked solid. Definitely like he could win 10 games, maybe in a year, especially when he gets more developed along with Horn on the defense and whatnot. So I think it's really helped the Panthers' passing weapons in a fantasy sense. Morris specifically has looked very good. Lots of targets on him.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you had to predict out this matchup between AB and Seagouch, what would it be?
Uh, I'm gonna have to give it to Seagout.
Okay, and would you like to give a score prediction?
I think it'll probably be like 110-90.
Okay.
Christian wins.
Kyler Murray really looking
I
spectacular.
think I don't think Austin has a stinker. I just think Christian's team is really strong. So.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to your game because it makes the most sense to transition to there. So Lamar Jackson and Brady, what have you been thinking about Lamar this year? You've been starting him every game. He's obviously your guy. When you take Lamar Jackson, you're in a position where you're pretty much going to be starting him every week and relying on him. So
Yeah, I mean I don't even have a backup quarterback. So
what have been your thoughts on Jackson so far?
uh, not terrible. I mean like it is cool having like the whole running back like also like as a quarterback. So, but he like other than like one game this year, he's yet to like blow up. He's been consistent and average. So I, I've liked him so far.
And talk to me about your running back situation here. Mike Davis and Mixon, two guys that aren't necessarily explosive but can get a lot of work. Like, tell me what it's been like to roster these two guys and how will they perform this Sunday?
Well, Davis has usually been my flex, and he's really underperformed. I thought he'd be a lot better, but he's playing a Jets team in London, which always like creates weird opportunities. I don't know. I feel like the Sundays in London are always weird and wacky or boring, one of the
Yes.
two.
Yes.
But
Rarely watchable.
yeah. But so I'm hoping that he'll at least squeeze out a touchdown. Mixon is probably gonna get some of the workload tomorrow, which is rare because usually he gets all of it. But he's obviously got that questionable designation. He's supposed to play at least some bit. And then I also have Melvin Gordon that I obviously from Christian, not Christian, excuse me, Spencer. And I keep going back and forth between starting those two, but I'll probably go with Mixon just because I like Mixon's.
Talk about your trade with Spencer, getting Rob Gronkowski for Noah Fant, as well as a swap of two other guys, and then Gronk immediately getting hurt. What do you think about that? Talk to me about this trade.
Well, I mean, it sucks, but I have faith that Gronk will, do Gronk-like things moving forward. I
Well,
mean, I'm
he's
all right
already
with him giving.
he's already doing Gronk like things for you. He's fucking hurt.
Well, yeah, that does suck, but I also like having Melvin Gordon too. 'Cause I
Right.
think Swift is
You
gonna
traded
be hurt.
you traded away Swift for Melvin Gordon. That was the other part of the deal.
Yes. So
So are you gonna start Gordon this week if he plays?
probably not. He's playing the Steelers, and
No Bridgewater. I would
Mixon's gonna say.
I think the Steelers are gonna have a good game. I think they're gonna do well.
Yeah, so that's why I'd rather go with Moon against the Packers defense. And then Hollywood Brown Reek is my wide receivers with T. Higgins coming back for the first time in 3 weeks.
Nice. So to me, a big part of this game is going to be Tyreek Hill. Anytime you start him, obviously he has tremendous pop-off potential, but I think Spencer has a lot of guys who are going to put up solid numbers here. He's got the Vegas fucking set load for you to guzzle. Chicago has looked pretty abominable this year. I think that Spencer's Vegas guys, he has so many of them, he's gonna pretty much guaranteed to get at least a couple touchdowns out of them. I think Vegas is due for a big game. And then DJ Moore gets all the damn targets. Philly's defense is soft. And he's facing you with your own old guy, Swift, which I think is interesting. And Chimera has been exactly what Spencer feared this year, which is somewhat inconsistent. Although I think Spencer's just not a big Chimera guy. That he will put up his points, but what have you thought about Chimera this year and the Saints in general with Jameis Winston?
Uh, not saying it's a failed project by any means, but it hasn't looked right yet. Even despite that Week 1 win against the Packers. So I don't know. They have a lot of work to get done before I think Lamar reaches his old fantasy status. But he's still obviously an option one kind of guy.
Right.
It just tells you what kind of production he has had in the past. So
If you were Sean Payton, would you start to ramp up the Taysom Hill plays?
no,
What are your
I would stick with Jameis.
What are your thoughts on Taysom Hill as an offensive weapon lined up in the backfield?
Joke Mormon option.
So you don't like
Trash.
it. You don't like it when they run the gimmick plays where Hill just like runs it in.
I think it's effective because he's like a bowling ball. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad play call, but no.
I love watching it. It must be terrible for people that pick the Saints because anytime they get in the damn red zone, here comes Taysom to fuck everyone.
Taysom Hill.
Because you can't start him at like tight end or receiver. You have to start him at fucking quarterback, and he gets like 6 snaps and 2 touchdowns. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you really should be able to start him at like tight end else
Yeah.
or at the flex position.
The Saints and the Cowboys were two teams that I really was trying to stay away from in the draft. The Cowboys have looked a lot better than I thought, especially with the emergence of Diggs on defense. But Zeke is a guy that a lot of people had so high, and I let fall to Weston, and I'm glad I did because Tony Pollard looks like he's becoming more and more of that offense every week.
Yeah, Pollard has definitely taken some value out of Zeke's non-existent value.
So if you had to put a number prediction on this match, what do you think it would be?
Uh, I think it'll be like 110 to 100. Me.
Okay, I like that pick. I really think that it's going to sway on Tyreek Hill, and I think that has a lot to do with my game too. Because if the Bills' defense can't shut down Tyreek, it's not going to be good for me. I think that Spencer will edge you by 2 points.
Ooh, another heartbreaker.
Jackson against Lilly, both teams 2-2 and need to win. Hurts is playing at Carolina. This is really what's going to make or break the matchup. Hurts is a guy that if you watch him, it absolutely will blow you away to look at the box score after and be like, Jesus, he got that many fantasy points. He looks way better on paper than he does in the game. Jackson got really, really tremendously lucky or had a great amount of foresight, whatever you want to say about Patterson. 3 touchdowns last week. He'll have a big game against the Jets this week. What do you think about Lilly's dual-headed running back monster combo of both of the Browns guys?
I think it's very interesting, but I think it's like guaranteed a touchdown at least, if
Yes.
not more.
Well, they run
I
so
mean, like
much.
I said it before this season, I was like, I would never really want that kind of situation of owning and starting both of the running backs at a time. share. If I did, like the Browns are definitely one of the teams I would consider it for. 'Cause, I mean, they extremely rely on that run game and play action for Baker. So I I don't think it's a terrible thing for the league, and I think it's kind of funny to see from week to week.
I agree. I think on some level it looks jokish, and it's like, oh, he's an idiot, or excuse me, she's an idiot for like having both of them. Like you never do that. You never get both of the fuckers in the same attack. You limit yourself. But I think this is a unique scenario, and every week they're both getting enough touches and being effective enough for it to work out. So you can make the argument that she sat there and reached for Hunt and could have taken him in the fourth as opposed to the third. But you know what? I think overall it's been a nice little floor for her team. And on some level, it is like you do have to fill both the running back spots, and sometimes that can be a burden. So if you're sitting there saying to yourself, I can get both of these guys and it's going to be guaranteed like a combined 25 plus, it doesn't matter that they're on the same team. Maybe not so much now that the Browns are no longer a joke and are somewhat of a threat and have been for a couple of 3 years now. So it's an interesting little build order for her. What are your thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins this year? He's ranked 24th. He's had a couple stinker games recently. Should she be worried about Hopkins?
Nah, I mean, same with Tyreek. Tyreek had a couple bummer weeks, and then he blew up. So I mean, it's concerning, but I wouldn't be, you know, overreacting about it. It's still early on in the season, and they're gonna pass the ball a lot in that offense, Kyler Murray. So I think DeAndre will get his fair eat soon enough.
All right. So even though there's no 100-yard receiving game yet, and even though he was taken top 16 by almost everyone who took him, you're still not concerned. He's got to put up big numbers. You still think he's going to get there? I mean, we're not talking 8 points a week here for where he got drafted. You think he can put up those big money top tier numbers? S class, top A class?
Yeah, I still think he can.
Okay.
I mean, he's in a Cliff Kingsbury offense.
They do
So,
pass. They do pass a lot and run a shitload of
so I mean,
plays.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Buffalo. That's just going to be one of those games that you circle. Obviously, it's on Sunday night, but these are two teams that I think are going to play in the championship game of their respective conferences. What do you think about that? Do you think that they'll both make it to the conference championship of their respective conferences? Well,
Yeah,
they're both in the
I,
AFC, but you know what I mean.
I think they will. Yeah, I don't think that's too hot of a take,
Yeah.
unless if you really think Denver and Vegas are that real.
Denver? Who the fuck's talking about Denver except for ESPN? Fuck
Yeah,
Denver.
they're ahead of the Broncos, or they're ahead of the Chiefs. I mean,
I guess you can take that one to the bank. So you're advising our beloved loyal audience to bet on a futures bet for Denver to make it to the
no,
AFC game. Is that what you're
of
saying,
course
Dan?
not. That's why I said if you were thinking that.
If you have brain damage, make that bet.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. If we look at AJ Green, this was a guy a lot of people had pegged as dead and buried 3 weeks in a row with over 10 fantasy points. Is this going to be a career resurgence for AJ Green, or is this just a flash in the pan and we're going to see Kirk and Hopkins start to have huge weeks after this?
I mean, I think that it might rotate, but yeah, he's looked really good in that offense, and I thought that they were kind of quick to give up on him in Cincinnati. So I think that it's very, very well possible that he has a good year, better than Kirk.
AJ Green over under 140 fantasy points.
I'll say over.
Okay. So who do you got for this game, King of Funny?
I would have to go with Lilly.
Care to give a
I think
reasoning or something to look out for?
I think Josh Allen has a big week. I think DeAndre Hopkins has at least 2 touchdowns. I think Hawkinson gets at least a touchdown if he plays. I don't think Chuba or Chode Hubbard, whatever his name.
Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah. I don't think he has a great. Even if he is starting. I thought McCaffrey might be back, but I thought he was doubtful. Actually.
Yeah,
Knox
McCaffrey.
Knox could have a good week. AJ Green, I see having a less good week, and DeAndre Hopkins having a better week, which would that's a direct matchup in wide receivers. So interesting on its own. I don't think they run the ball as well against Buffalo, even though that Clyde could get a touchdown.
I see.
I think they're passed the ball a shit ton in Kansas City against the Bills. So, yeah, just looking over it overall, there's a lot I like for Lilly. So.
I'm going to pick Jackson. I think with Metcalf locked in for a big day, he's got a big advantage. And I think AJ Green will have another 10-plus point week. And I think Hubbard will get enough touches to do some damage.
That's fair.
Yeah, if McCaffrey's doubtful now, he's not going to play. Alright, Weston and Kevin. Weston got dealt his first loss, and Russell Wilson got hurt on Thursday Night Football, locked in with 9. Huge opportunity here for the commish, getting really thrown a bone and cut a huge break. This is such a freaking big game for the commish, because he's got Tony Pollard in a weak matchup against the Giants, and Zeke Elliott is questionable and potentially could have a severely reduced workload. To me, this is a not only must-win game for the commish, but everything is breaking his way. So what do you think about this one? Can Weston fall? Will the commish do it?
Oh, man. I think he could, but I never want to count Weston out. And the way that Kevin, trajectory as an owner has gone these past 2 seasons, my money's on that Weston still wins this now. So maybe get one good W with Russ before he's gone.
Well, I think if the commish puts in Tony Pollard, he stands a fighting chance. I think that it'll be close regardless, but Dalton Schultz was a cute little pickup. He's getting looks in the offense. I think Gallup being out sort of opens that up, and we've seen Schultz emerge over the last couple weeks. Obviously, he man-moded and embarrassed Philly. Younghoe Koo will put up over a dozen against the Jets. And overall, this just really enables the commish to have a fighting chance with Wilson locked in at sub-10. And Zeke, questionable, that's cute, but you have Tony Pollard, you're benefiting so directly. So I'm going to say the commish 90, Weston 88.
Yeah. I see why you're saying that. I'm still going with Weston.
That's fine, I'm not expecting you to change. Okay, we'll do the final game here. 2 1-3 geniuses, Aaron and Cameron. And Aaron's rolling with Sam Darnold, which I actually like. Philly's soft. Cam is doing the classic Cam thing of starting Prescott every week. If he didn't get hurt last year, I think Cam might have started Prescott like 70 games in a row or some shit. He loves Prescott. And I would honestly love to know the last time Cameron sat down and either watched over 3 hours of Red Zone or like an entire Cowboys game. Over under a year, Ben, on that.
I'd say over.
Okay, Ben's taking all the overs in this TWIF episode. I love it.
I am.
If you look at the rest of Cameron's team, though, it's a lot of guys that shuck cock. We're looking at Dalvin Cook here. Will he play? He's got that big droopy Q by his name. Weird thing about running backs being questionable is it makes the guys who don't split time turn into timeshares anyway, and you can really get boned and they can get less than 10 carries very easily. Whereas when a receiver's questionable, it's more linear. It's like they're going to start and get a lot of their workload, or they're just not going to start. Whereas with the running back, you can throw them in there and they can take a big steamy right in your mouth. So it sucks for Cam. Montgomery, who popped off for him, is just fucky wucked, banged up his knee. He really needs Cook to start, and he needs Dak to have a pop-off game, which is very likely against the Giants. And again, this is one of those games where both people really need the W. And this is one of those like junkyard dog street fight type need the W's, because once you go to 1-4, it can be pretty fucking bad. So, is there anything that you want to say about this matchup that jumps out to you?
Not much. I don't see much chance Cam's gonna win this.
Yeah, I agree. Dak will have to solo carry him. Now, on a more interesting note, would you like to say anything to Aaron since he's currently at the bottom of our division? And he's a frequent proponent of the narrative that you don't care.
I've said it before. It just seems like Aaron doesn't seem to care anymore. Kind of given up. So, but I'm happy that he's still statistically still in it. So, and he's playing Cameron. So things are boding his way this week.
Of course,
So I won't say anything too mean. But
of course he's statistically still in it. It's week 5 and he's playing Cameron. Anything is still possible. Christ, look at what Jackson did last week or last year. He was like literally last and completely dead and came back and made the Super Bowl. So Aaron is still certainly live, but he's at the bottom of our division and he really needs this win. And it's sort of funny because Cameron's team, who just a couple of 3 weeks ago Spencer was out here saying on TWIF, it's such a good team that not even Cameron can fuck it up. It seems like some poor bastard will fall into that trap and say that at least once a season, and Cameron always finds a way, Ben, in spectacular fashion, to have that happen and have it blow up in his face and burn every fucker that dares to go out on a limb for him. So, are you gonna bury Cameron? Is Cameron done?
I mean, the fact that his picture is still Mike Ditka.
7 years now, same name and picture.
Just makes me laugh. No, I think Cameron's done.
Cameron's done. Stick a fork in him. Spencer projected him to be very solid and a threat a few weeks ago, a couple of 3 weeks ago, in fact, and now Ben's saying he's done. I feel like it's a running bit I could do where it's like shortest time in between someone predicting Cameron to be a threat or go above 500 and then before someone else like projects that he's going to be done. And not even people like being bullshitting about it or ostentatious. Like Spencer was actually looking at his lineup and being like, this is pretty like good and like has some pieces to it. And now we're looking at Cameron's lineup saying like, I wonder if he even scrolls past the optimize button at this point. So
True.
it's just funny to see. Every year it's like Cameron, he's got Dak who's gonna put up the empty passing yards. Is he gonna do anything? And then inevitably it's always like, is he gonna start this out guy? Is he going to even hit optimize? And at this point he's looking like the correct person that should have been picked by the Gouch and the division draft. So we'll bounce it back to the divisions here and wrap the episode. Ben, if I fuck the divisions here, Weston leads his. He's looking to be in a solid position. Jackson really needing to get a win and stay close. Spencer undefeated, the only undefeated team left. Seagouch narrowly on his heels and looking very strong. Both of those guys are, I would say, favorites to make the playoffs at this point and be the first seed in the wild card. And then in our division, I'm doing well. Have put up 100 plus points every week. I think I put up like 99 in week 1 or whatever, but 2 solid teams at 2-2 and then Rampy playing the caboose. Why don't you give some division predictions and we'll wrap the episode. Who's going to win the divisions and pick a wild card?
I think it's gonna be Weston and my balls Zach Ertz. And then I think Christian's gonna come back and actually overtake Spencer in Division 2, King's Landing.
Okay.
And then honestly, I see it becoming down between a race for first between me and you, but you'll probably be in the lead for most of it and probably win the division. I'll have to hope that fourth spot falls lower, or some kind of miracle. I
Okay.
don't think the wild card is coming out of this division.
Yeah, I think whoever doesn't win between Spence and Gouch is probably the favorite for that.
I agree. So.
Alright, that's the episode. Like, comment, sub. Ben, thanks for joining us.